Hey there guys, welcome again, and in this tutorial we're going to be learning how to make an endless shooter game. This idea was actually inspired by one of the commenters that said we should make an endless shooter game and slowly increase the amount of enemies that they spawn according to how far and how long you've played the game. So in this tutorial I'm going to be covering all that, so stay tuned. So without wasting any time, first of all we're going to make a 2D scene as you can see here and type in game as the name. We're going to save this scene just here in our res directory, and next thing is we're going to create a player. So the player is going to be a kinematic body, and we're just going to rename it to player. We add a sprite and we add a collision shape. So the collision shape is going to be a circle shape, and the sprite is going to be one of our assets here. If you want to get the same assets, go over to GitHub, link will be in the description. You can get all these assets and follow along with this tutorial. So here we're going to use this player shape 1 orange, and actually we're going to just scale it down because it looks too big. Go over to transform and reset the position back to 0 0. Then the shape of the collision, we're going to increase it a bit, take it down just to fit in the player there. So we press Ctrl S to save and save it as player.tscn. Then under the player again, we want to have two more position 2D nodes. So the position 2D nodes are the muzzles basically. So I'm going to drag this up here. This is actually where the bullet is going to be firing from, and this other one is going to go up here, and this is basically all. So now next thing is we're going to add a script to the player here. Then inside here, first of all, we want to make a variable velocity. We can just say vel equals to vector2. The next variable is going to be speed, and it's going to be equal to a 200. So now on the physics process function, we're going to have x and y variables here. So basically, inside here we have input.get action strength UI underscore right minus input.get action strength UI underscore left. So basically, it's getting the action strength to be a 0 or a 1. So if you're pressing the right key, this guy is going to become 1, and the left is going to become 0. So 1 minus 0 is 1, which means we should move right on the x-axis. And same thing for this one, UI underscore down minus UI underscore up. So if you're pressing the down key, down is going to be equals to 1, and 1 minus 0 is going to be equals to 1, which is down direction. For the other way around, if we're pressing the right key, sorry, if we release the right key and we're pressing down the left key, then the left key is going to be a 1 and right is going to be a 0. So we're going to be having 0 minus 1, which is a minus 1, and minus 1 is in the left direction in Godot. Same thing for the y-axis, UI underscore up. If it's minus, if it's 1, then this guy is going to be 0. If you're pressing both of them together, it's going to be 1 and a 1, which is 0, which means it's not going to move anywhere. Basically, that's the simplest explanation I can give you for that. So next thing is we do vel be equal to a vector2 of x, y dot normalized. To really understand how the normalized works, we're going to print vel and vector2, x and y, so that we'll just see the difference. And for the last thing, we're going to move and slide with velocity times speed. Basically, that's all for the movement code. So now, as we said earlier, we're going to be shooting. So we're going to make a function for that. So we say func shoot, and in here, these are where we want the bullets to be coming out from. Actually, we can't actually shoot now because we don't have any bullets. So for now, we're just going to pass. So to make a bullet, we're going to create a new scene. We're going to go to other node, and it's going to be an area 2D. As we're going to rename this to bullet, and as a child we're going to add collision shape and a sprite. So here over the sprite, I'm going to use this laser blue 07. As I said before, you can check out these assets on GitHub. You can download them and come along, follow the tutorial. So anyways, collision shape, we're going to put a capsule shape, which is not really necessary. You can just put a rectangle if you wish, or whatever. We're going to save it as bullet.tscn. And pardon me, we are meant to move this, and to make the node tree here more organized, we'll create another folder called objects, then put our bullet and our player player.gd and player.tscn inside it. So with that done, and I think we're done with the bullets, we just need to add a script. But for now, we're going to instance the bullets inside here just to see how it fits, and use W key to move it, and we'll move it to somewhere here. So when you actually shoot the bullet, this is how it's going to look. It's going to shoot from here. So if the size is not enough or your size is too big, you go over to sprites and you reshape it. If you want to reshape it to scale, you hold shift on your keyboard, then we go back to transform and put position to 0. I'm going to resize this guy too, and we should be all good. Go back to the player, and as you can see, the bullet actually looks more natural now, so we can go ahead and delete it. So in the bullet.tscn, we're going to add a script to the bullet, and inside here we're going to set the speed to 800, and on the process function we'll just do position.y minus equals speed times delta. Basically what this is doing is it's going to make the bullet move up on immediately it just starts. It's going to move up, and that's the kind of style we're trying to achieve. So we save this and we go back to the player script. Then on the shoot function, sorry, before that we have to make a variable bullet, and it's going to be equal to the preloaded version of our bullets. So you just preload into brackets and you put bullet.tscn inside them. So we make another variable bullet underscore instance, and is it going to be equal to bullet dot instance. Then we're going to say bullet dot global position, sorry, bullet instance dot global position is equal to position to the dot position. Then we're going to set the bullet instance's position to be equal to the first global position to the position. So this is the guy here, and the bullet is going to be instanced at this point. And also we have to make another bullet for position 2d2. So we'll all do that in this same function. So we're just going to copy this line again, bullet instance and bullet instance 1, sorry, instance 2 and instance 1. Then we change this to a 1. We're going to copy and paste this 2, change this to a 2, and position to the 2. So basically it's going to instance two bullets and give them the position of these two position nodes here, so that I can shoot out of them. So the next thing is we add the two of them as children of the root node. So we say get tree the root the add child bullet instance 1, and the next one is the add child bullet instance 2. So we save that and hopefully we should be good. So we go over to our game and we're going to instance the player by clicking this button here and instance the player. We use W to move it to somewhere here, and we're going to run the game. I'm going to select parent. So as you can see, we can move, and if you pay attention to the debugger here, remember when I say we should print velocity and the vector 2 of x and y. So now you see if I move right and move left, it looks the same and identical. But just look when I press down and the left key. If you take a snapshot of this, you're going to see the difference. And over there, now you see that the normalize function somehow reduces the magnitude of the vector 2, such that it's 0.7 and a minus 0.7 instead of a 1 and a minus 1. Actually this thing may seem small, but without normalizing it you find out that going diagonally is actually faster than going up or left or right, as the case may be. So we're back to the game, and I forgot something in the player. We are not actually calling this shoot function. So we say if input dot is underscore action pressed, which is the select, that's spacebar key. So if we're pressing the spacebar, then we want to shoot. We're going to call the function, we're going to try it again, and as you can see we have two bullets being instanced there, and see the bullets are going to be made at the left hand side here, but this is actually going to populate our scene tree really fast, so we're going to be deleting it. So I want you to go to the bullet node here, and we're going to add a visibility notifier. Remember, visibility notifier, not enabler. Then we're going to just size this to the size of the bullet. Go to node and screen exited. We're going to connect the signal to the bullet, and on this, when it exits the screen, you just want to delete it. Basically that's all. and you're going to find out that even after I shoot so many bullets, they are just going to be deleted automatically. For now, we're just going to get rid of this print statement in the player because it's no more unnecessary. So the next thing is we're going to be adding some meteors. So they are basically going to be the enemies in this case. So we're going to click a plus button there, other node area 2D, and I'm going to be naming it meteor. As a child of it, we add collision shape, and as a child again, we add the sprite. So go back to the sprites, and actually we have four types of meteors just for variety's sake, and I'll show you how to randomize these guys and just be bringing them randomly for some reason. I feel it's just a nice topic to cover, so we'll just do that. We put in one texture, and this is actually quite too big, so I put this at 8.45 and 8.45. Know that I am actually resizing the sprite, not the meteor itself. Then we go over to the collision shape. We're going to add a circle shape and bring this down here so that we can see it over. Then we increase the size, and that should be good. We save it as meteor.tscn inside our objects folder. Then in the meteor script, we're going to add a new script. Now in the script, we're going to be loading all those textures. So we're going to put the textures variable, which is just the name of all those textures. As you can see, meteor gray big 1, meteor gray big 2, 3, and 4. And that's just here so that we'll randomize it and pick a random one every single time. So here I want to make a random variable, which is just going to get a random number between 0 and 4, like 0 and 3 basically. So how does this happen? Textures the size is actually going to release a 4. So it's just basically normal for me to put in a 4 here. But what if we have more textures and we don't want to be editing code always? So it's actually more creative or intuitive to use textures dot size so that we just know how many elements are inside here. Then the round die is basically going to get a very long big number, and this modulates here is going to divide that number by whatever the size is. In our case is 4, so whatever the remainder is going to save it in random, and the remainder cannot be bigger than this number. It cannot even be equal to this number. It will only be less than it. So hopefully you understand what I'm saying. And now we're going to set the sprite texture to load this path plus the textures random. So random, as I said, is a point, is a number, and we're going to get the index of that number, which is sorry, we're going to get the value of that number, of that index, which is any of these guys, and it's going to be completely random. Anyways, make sure you have to add this res assets meteors slash if you're following exactly what I'm doing. But if you're not, just go to where your directory is and copy this guy and put it in there. Make sure you add this last slash because you might run into problems if you don't. Next thing on the physics process, just add the position the y plus 200, and that's basically makes the meteor move down instead of up or any other direction. It just moves down. And if you notice, the player is actually stationary, so it somehow gives it that effect that he's going up instead. The meteors are just going down. Also, for the meteors, I want to add a visibility notifier, and this time around we're going to put this guy under here. The reason why we're putting him under here is because when we instance the node, it's going to be somewhat outside the screen, somehow outside the screen, and we don't want it to delete if it's just being instanced. So we're going to put it down here so that when it instances it is when it leaves the screen actually that it will delete the node. So we'll go over to node signals and screen edit exited. We also connect it and just do QUEUE underscore free. Now for the last thing for the meteors, I'm going to make a variable HP, and it's going to be equal to 0. And in this case, I'm going to use a set get and change underscore HP. So those of you that don't know what a set get is, it's basically going to say whenever this value is changed, call this function. Basically, that's the simplest explanation for it. So we have to put a function there, change underscore hp. Know that this function has to be the same name as this what you put after the set get. So it's going to take in a value, and Over here, we're just going to say HP equals to value. HP equals to value because the value is always going to be what you're changing it to. So don't overthink about what is happening here. Just know that you're setting HP to value, and if HP is less than or equals to 0, then we want to just delete the meteor. With that done, it's time to instance the meteors. So now we're going to go over here to game, and we're going to add a script game.gd, and under the game, actually, we're going to add a timer. So this is what is going to be telling it when to instance more meteors. So on the timeout signal, we're going to connect it to the game, and we're going to just get rid of all this. Now it's time to make some spawn points. So there are some points where we may want it to spawn, and we're going to spawn them up here. So we're going to hit Control A and create a node 2D and just name this spawn points. And as a child of this, we're just going to add position to the node. So for this, we're just going to hit W on our keyboard, click and drag. Sorry, hold Control, click and drag. Then Control D to duplicate, click and drag. Make sure you hold Control so that you can snap to the x-axis. Duplicate, Control, click and drag, duplicate. We're just going to do that. So we'll go to the game script, and here we're just going to make a variable meteor, and it's going to be equal to a preloaded version of the meteor. Then on timer timeout, we're just going to set the wait time to be equal to the maximum value of 0.5 and timer wait time minus 0.01. Basically, what this is doing is it's going to reduce the amount of time it takes to spawn a new one as you go on in the game. Well, if you don't add this max function here with all this inside, it's going to just at the point it's just going to be spawning like almost every millisecond, which is going to just not be nice. It may look like this. So so the best way to go now is it's going to find the maximum, which is 0.5 or this. So this is going to be like the fastest is going to spawn basically. So now we're going to make a meteor instance. We're saying meteor.instance, and the point is going to also be a random integer modulate spawn points get child count. So it's just going to pick one of these guys as a point. Set the global position to one of their positions and add it as a child of the meteors node. But I haven't actually made the meteors node, so we're just going to make it now. So it's in simply in node 2D with its name as meteors. So we're going to drag this on top the player so that we don't want meteors covering the player ever. So it's always going to be behind it. We're almost ready to go, but the last thing is for now is we're going on the game in the game script. We're going to randomize on the ready. Basically, this is just going to make this random integer work better, if you ask me, because if you don't do this every time you're reloading the game, it's always going to be the same spawn points and all that stuff. Then we'll go over to the timer and click auto start, and we're going to run it. As you can see here, we have some meteors spawning and we can shoot, but nothing is happening to them. So now the next step is we're going to delete some rocks immediately you shoot them, about 3 bullets or so. We'll go over to meteor, and remember when we set the HP variable equals to 0, actually we're going to set it to 3, which means after you hit it 3 times, free it. That's like delete it from the scene. So we'll go over to meteor here, and go over to the node groups. I'm going to add it in the meteors group. So with that added, we go over to the bullets again, and we're going to connect the area entered signal to it. And in the area entered, it's just going to check if whatever you entered is a meteor, and if it's a meteor, sorry, is in group meteors, I think. Make sure it's the same name with the group here, meteors. So if it's a meteor, reduce the HP by 1, and we're going to delete the bullet itself. So we're going to run this and see. See, as I shot that there, it just deletes. So we're going to make it explode this time. To do this is not really hard. You're going to create a new scene, and it's going to be an animated sprite. You can rename this if you like, but if you don't, you can just leave it the way it is. And we're going to save it as explosion.tscn. Go over to frames and click new sprite frame, and if you click it, you're going to see this guy pop up. So now in here, we're just going to click this grid icon, assets and explosion strip 7. So we're going to choose how many animations this is, how many frames this is. So actually this is 7 frames, and on the vertical we have just one. So we click select slash clear all frames, which means like click all of them basically, and we're going to add the 7 of them. So now the speed here, you can alter it. If you want to check it, you can just click playing. As you can see, it's really slow, so we're going to alter this to like an 11. As you can see, it gives some kind of nice effect. So we're going to click off and reset the frames back to 0, and we'll go over to node signals on animation finished. Once we do that, oh, before that we have to add a script, and this time the script is going to be built in because there'll be no need to add it since this is a really simple scene. So we're just going to make it a built-in script, and we're going to connect the animation finished to it. I'm just going to cancel this. So when the animation is finished, also delete this guy, but the animation cannot be finished if it's not started. So we say func underscore ready. Then on the ready function, we just want to play the default. So this default is basically here, as you can see, default. If you change this name here, you have to change the name here when you play it. So we save that, and we go back to the meteor where we are supposed to delete it. And here we're going to call the function destroy. This function now is what we're about to make. So on the destroy function, first of all, we want to preload. So we say explode preload version of the explosion.tscn. Then inside here, we're just going to basically instance it, give it its the global position of where the meteor is right at that point, add it as a child of the root node, and delete the meteor at that same point. So we're going to run this and see. If I go around, I press this, as you can see, it just deleted it, which is really cool. As you can see, the explosion is really small proportional to the meteor that is exploding. So we're going to go over to the explosion here and increase the scale to 1.9 and 1.9. So if we play this now and we try shooting, it's going to give us the proportional explosion to the size of the meteor basically. With all that said, we are down to only 2 things now, which is adding scores and killing the player. So to add scores is relatively easy. We're just going to add a node here, a label node, and as a child of it, we're going to add another label. This guy is going to be named score, and the label and the score, we're going to edit their fonts, go over to theme overrides and go over to fonts. We're going to create a new dynamic font, click that, go over to font, and here we see agency B here. So we're going to drag it inside there. If you want to use my assets, as I said, always in GitHub. So go over to settings, increase this to like a 30, and in the label I just want to write score here with a colon, and the score itself, we're going to shift it over to the side here, and we're just going to give it a 0 for now. So we're going to be changing the score through code. So we go over to the game here, and we're going to add a function. So over here at the top, we just create a points variable, as I said, set get. So over here at the top, we're going to create a points variable equals to 0, and we're going to use set get to add the point. So on add point, we just point equals to value, and we want to update the score text here to be equals to the string value of point. So from the meteor, before we destroy or after we destroy, we're going to call that game node, which is this guy here. We're going to call the node and say point plus equals 1, and that is going to come here and initialize this function. So I think we're all good, so we're going to run it and test it. So as you can see, the points are increasing as I'm destroying the meteors, and it's all working perfectly. Now for the last step, we're going to be killing the player when the meteor touches it. So in the player scene, we're going to create another area to the, we're just going to call this heart box. So heart box, and as a child of this, the same thing, collision shape. So this is going to be a circle shape too, and it's going to be a bit bigger. So if an asteroid touches any part of this shape, it's going to ignite the die function that we're going to create now. Then we'll go over to the hotbox, go over to node on area entered, and we're going to still say the same thing. If area dot is in group meteors, then we want to destroy. So now the destroy function that we used for the explosion here, sorry, for the meteor here, is basically the same thing we're going to be doing. So we're just going to copy all this and go over to the player.gd, paste it in there. And now the only thing is remaining is we want to preload the explode scene, preload, and we're going to put it as a variable here. So we'll run it now, and hopefully when we touch a meteor, we're going to explode, and that is really nice. But the thing is, we want to be able to respawn, not just delete from the scene, I guess, and the game still continues playing. So we're going to make a fill screen somehow. Now we'll go over to the game. We're going to create a canvas layer. So as a child of this, I'm going to have a color rect, and it's going to fool the entire screen. I'm going to turn down the alpha a bit, so that it gives us a kind of blurring effect and turn it to full black. Then as a child of the color rect, I'm going to add a button. I'm not going to be showing you how to style this button with themes. If you want to do that, you can check a tutorial I'm going to leave at the right hand side here. But for now, we're just going to set it to center. I'll go over to theme, fonts, basically add that same font. I'm going to change the size to about a 40. Over here, we're just going to say try again. So now when you press this button, it goes over to the game, and it just says get underscore tree the reload current scene. So this is basically just going to start the scene all over again, and this guy is going to be off on default, so you're not going to be seeing it. And when the player dies, we have to tell the field screen that okay, you should show. So we're going to use the game node as a connection. So here we're going to make a function died, and on the died function we're basically going to show the color. So we're going to go over to the player, and before we delete the node, we're just going to call that died function from the game. So we run it, and as you can see, the game continues playing actually, which is actually nice if you ask me. And if you click try again, we reload the scene and we start again. So last but not the least is actually the stars at the background. And actually, I'm not going to be explaining that in this video. So if you want to learn it, you can check the card at the right hand side here. I'm going to show you how to make that effect. But for now, I'm just going to instance it, and I'm going to set the layer to be a -1 so that everything else is in front of it. And if you're curious, the stars are just basically particle 2D nodes. But as I said, if you want to learn how to make this whole effect, there'll be a link in the description. You can go check it out. So we're going to run this now, and I'm sorry for the last bug. As you can see, as we're trying to shoot, we can't actually shoot because the bullet is entering our own hot box, and it's going to just delete before it leaves us. So inside here, we're going to say if area the name is not equals to hotbox, then we want to free the bullet. Then now as you can see, we can shoot happily ever after, and actually this game is really nice and fun to play. So if you like this video, consider leaving a like, and if you want more videos like this, you can consider subscribing. Thanks for watching. See you guys next time. Smash subscribe and share.